I'm going to take one verse tonight, just one verse, that's verse 13. And I prepared for the end of the book here, and there won't be time to do that tonight, and wouldn't been anyway. It's about up two pieces anyway. But I want to take verse 13, and he just has come from a wonderful rendition, I'll call it, on the patience of the saints and how to live a life of patience and godliness. We really worked on that last Wednesday night. But tonight he makes a statement about life, and we'll read it here. And here it is, real simple, verse 13. Is any among you afflicted? Let him pray. Is any married? Let him sing psalms. Now most of us really do not believe in prayer. We say we do, and we'd even argue with somebody that profusely that we do. But the truth of it is, we really don't believe in prayer. Now, every one of us pray prayer prayers, where we're, Lord help me, or Lord help me do this, or like when I got off the phone with Catherine, because she was weepy and was not well, I should have just stopped and prayed with her over the phone, and I didn't. I hung up the phone, and I said, Lord, help Catherine tonight and take care of her, whatever her need is. And I went on. I call that a prayer, okay? But most of us really don't believe in prayer. This morning we sang something about spending an hour in prayer. Do you remember what song that was that we sang? It just said something about an hour in prayer, and I thought, you know, I can't remember the last time I spent an hour in prayer. I can't remember. It's been a long time. Now, I'm in constant communication with God, and I pray regularly, but to actually mark off a 1 hour, and I thought that'd be something to challenge our congregation on. Would you spend an hour in prayer? You still got those numbers as the songs you sang this morning? I think it's your second song is what was in. No, it wasn't Sweet Hour Prayer, but it was in there, a word, hour of prayer. And I don't know, anyway, see if you can find it for us, would you? But almost, it's the second verse, I think, actually. But I almost said something about this morning, and I thought, no, I don't have time, and it fits with tonight anyway. And I should have kept it, but I didn't. But my point is this, is that I thought this morning, what a deal it would be if honestly every one of us would find an hour this week, just this week, an hour that we'd set aside, and we go by ourselves, no wives, no kids, and by the way, if you got kids, you can still get an hour, put them down for that, instead of playing on social media, spend time with the Lord. And it says on our knees, by the way, in that song, on our knees. I believe it says that, and which is a great posture of prayer. But my point is this, is that if we really believed that prayers were really answered, we'd really pray more than we really do. Would you agree with that? We really would. We would have a different attitude towards the prayers that we pray, and because of that, we have a lot of afflictions in our life that we wouldn't have if we addressed the Lord first. And so he asked the question, and it's a hypothetical, if you will, where he says, is any among you afflicted? Let me ask you right now, is any among you afflicted? If you are, would you just raise your hand? Do you have an affliction? Okay. You can't raise your hand, can you? No. Your shoulder hurt you too bad. We're afflicted. We're all. Is everybody here not afflicted? Something not bothering you? Everything's hunky-dory and everything's okay? Mileage. Yeah, just mileage. We have afflictions in our bodies and in our spirits, and there's times we get down. I won't say who said it, but hey, when you find it, just yell at me, okay? Did you find it yet?
Justin did the songs this morning.
Oh, that's right, he did. Where's Justin when you need him? Okay, I was thinking, I wasn't thinking. Okay, well, don't worry about it, don't try to find it. But anyway, it said that this morning in one of the songs. But anyway, I guess he picked up those papers. Anyway, my point is this, is that afflictions come, and a lady said about her husband this evening, said, sometimes he gets just all emotional, and it's one of those times. She said, I get emotional. Does anybody get emotional from time to time? Yeah, weepy-eyed, yeah, and you know, we get those times where we just really are weepy and sad, and we can't help it, you know. I won't go any further than that. The point of it, though, is that afflictions come. But if we really believe that prayer would change that, and we say prayer changes things, but we really don't believe that, and I don't want to put you with me if you're not with me, but I think as a general rule, I can honestly say, most people do not believe that prayer really changes things, or they pray more. We trust God, and we don't beg Him, but we lay out our request to God, and, you know, He answers our prayers as a general rule. But we wouldn't know it most often because when He finally gets around to answering them, we forgot we've been praying for it. Am I speaking to somebody besides me? Okay? So when He asks the question, is any among you afflicted? And His response is, let him pray. I want to talk about this afflictions, which means to undergo hardship, to endure afflictions or suffer trouble. Now, if you remember, Wednesday night we talked about Job in verse 11, where it makes this statement, we have seen the end of the Lord, that the Lord is very pitiful and of tender mercy. He's speaking of the patience of Job. Now, I'm not dealing with patience tonight, I'm dealing with afflictions. Job was afflicted, as I mentioned ever so briefly last week tonight. We don't know whether he's afflicted a day, a month, a year, or 10 years. We don't know how long he was afflicted. But I can tell you this, when you get sick, it seems like it's forever. When you're really afflicted, it just seems to be dragged out, and it seems like it's never going to go away. And when you get feeling better, you think, it wasn't that bad. But during the time, it's really bad for us. And so this affliction here that he's talking about is any among you afflicted, that we've all been afflicted. And again, that word means to endure afflictions or suffer trouble. Now, having said that, sometimes they come from the devil, there's no doubt. He just comes on us. Did Job deserve what happened to him from our perspective? Not at all. He was, God Himself said He's perfect. He eschews evil, He does right, he prayed for his children, for himself. This guy was an upset, but the devil afflicted him. The Lord turned the devil loose on him. I don't want the Lord turning the devil loose on me. So I try to keep my act just sorry enough that He won't brag on me too much to the devil. I'm kidding. But to think about it, the Lord turned him loose on him. And it was not his fault. Sometimes, for the greater good of our lives, God allows the devil to do things to afflict us, to bring us to where God's trying to get us. And if you become prideful or arrogant, I can understand that. But we have to remember that God has put him on a chain. All you need to do is read the first 2 chapters of Job. You don't need to read any more to see that God put the devil on a chain. Then get to the end of it, and you'll see that the chain was very short. But when Job was going through it, it didn't seem like it was on a short chain at all. It sounded like the devil had total control of his life. I mean, he kills his kids, takes his land, hauls away his wealth, afflicts his body, has his wife turn against him. His 3 best friends won't even talk to him now without condemning him. And there's just no hope for the guy. And suddenly God turns it around like that. And so, affliction. What brings on afflictions? Sometimes it's just the Lord allowing the devil to afflict us. That happens. Sometimes it's our own sin. Chapter 1 makes a statement in verses 14 and 15 where he says, every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. And when lust is conceived, it brings forth sin. And sin, when it's finished, brings forth death. Now, there's no doubt in our minds here, I don't think there should be any doubt, that most afflictions come from our own lust. We get involved in something, or we get bent on something. Let me think before I tell the story, if I can tell it. I can tell it. A person called me this last week. It had nothing to do with our church. But this person told me that they got a phone call that was from out of state, and that their grandchild had just had a breakdown, and because he was cooperative with the police, they put him in jail, and they impounded his car, and he needed $5,000. And when this person told me that, I said, don't send the money. And the person, and I'm not going to identify man or woman, but the person said to me, I wanted to send the money because I don't want my grandson going through this. I said, it's a lie. Did you call your grandson? She said, I don't even know his number. I said, you think your grandson, that you don't even know his number, you don't know where he lives right now, or what's going on, would call you and ask for $5,000? And by the way, the story went on that they wanted to put in 3 envelopes addressed to 3 different places. That's a true story, I'm not lying a bit. all what this person told me, and said to me, what do you think? What should I do? And I said, don't send the money. It's a scam. That's what it is. And they go on with old people like that all the time. But the point of it is sometimes we get involved in deals, and because we are drawn into it, because we want to help somebody, we get bit real hard, and it afflicts us. Sometimes it's on the other side. We see a deal that's just too good to be true, and we take advantage of it and get bit on that way. We get afflicted by our own lust. We want something we shouldn't have, and we get it, and after we get it, we thought, oh, I wish I had bought that. And I don't know if you've ever bought any tools from Harbor Freight, and got it home, I wish I had bought that. Man, that's such a price, I can't pass that up. Get it home 2 days later, broken. I buy a tool from them, go ahead and buy the warranty. But the point is this, is that some come from the course of life. He tells us in James 1:27, and everybody should memorize and know this one, when he's talking about affliction. He says, pure religion and undefiled before God the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction, and to keep himself unspotted in the world. Now here's the question. I want to read the word again, since you hear this. To visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction. I'm talking about afflictions here. Sometimes we have widows and orphans. We have one in our midst. We have Christina has lost her husband, our son, and little Everett has lost his daddy. And although he's not orphaned, he really doesn't have a daddy now. He's orphaned in that sense. And this is an affliction. And although she's doing very well with it, you wouldn't believe how people ask me, how's Christina doing? I said, well, you know, good as you'd be expected. But I know that affliction is beyond your understanding, and you don't know what to do with it. So you just go on living. So sometimes afflictions come in life when we don't deserve it, we didn't expect it, we didn't want it, and it comes and we have to live with it. So he says, what do you do when you're afflicted? You pray. You pray. And you pray for one another. And he talks about that later in his text. The solution is the word pray, which is in the Greek is a 10-letter word. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. A 12-letter word is proseuchomai, and it literally means to pray to God. It means to reach out to, supplicate, worship, pray earnestly for. And so what do when you're afflicted? You earnestly pray that God will help you not only understand what's happened, but to correct the course if you were involved in the problem of it, and then to receive from his hand what he wants you to do in your life. I do not believe that things happen by accident. I just do not. I believe that God has his providence. If you're his child, everything that happens to us here, he knew about it beforehand. And according to Romans 8:28, he works it for our good. He's going to take whatever evil the devil puts our way, or whatever disaster comes our way, and God will turn it to our good, and will bless us if we will simply walk with him good, and will pray and understand what he's doing. Now, a classic example of real praying is when Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane, and we all know the story, and there's a point, I never saw it until I was preparing this message tonight, this last week, and here it is. When Jesus prayed in the garden, although he had 12 men with him total, one of them was a devil that wasn't around. 11 of them were there close by, but he took 3 of them and said, come and watch and pray with me for 1 hour. And yet, when he got those 3 out by themselves, what did he do? Somebody tell me. Anybody know what he did when he got through there? Huh?
He went by himself.
He went off by himself. He did not. He went away about a stone's throw, which means they couldn't hear what he was saying. And so I'm convinced that praying, sometimes real praying for us, when we're trying to understand what God's doing in our life, is not something to be shared with other people. Other people can be involved in the prayer with you, and they can pray for you, but they cannot hear your heart to God. I've said this many times over the years, y'all gonna think I'm terrible, but I cannot, Carolyn and I seldom pray together except at meal times or special occasions when we deal with issues. But typically speaking, I do my praying and she does hers. And I know she's in there praying. I hope she knows I'm in there praying, or I'm out there praying wherever I am. Because if I really prayed what I'm praying in front of her, she would think less of me. Not that I'm in any kind of evil or bad, but if you don't open up your heart to God and tell what you're really thinking, you're not getting through to God. And if you're listening to me what I'm saying, I can't be honest to God. And so what I'm saying is there's times for public prayer, there's times for private prayer with people, and then there's time for personal prayer. And this example in Luke chapter 20 is that time, chapter 22, where he was really praying and he poured out his heart to God. And it is recorded for us, and I thought about it when I looked this up. Who recorded that? Well, it tells us that later God brought it into their minds, and not to worry about what you're going to say when they take it before kings, because he'll give you what you need to know in that hour. I believe it was, if you will please, extra biblical revelation. God just told him what he was praying, and he prayed that he would remove this cup from him. So, the typical prayer of satisfied Christians is the Pharisee prayer that I referred to this morning, where he stood on the street corner and said, Lord, I'm so glad I'm not like this guy across the street. But Lord, I'm such a wonderful person. I thank you for being so good to me. How many times do we pray like that? Lord, thank you for being so good to me. You've blessed me so, and you've done so much for us, and we just thank you, Lord. There's nothing wrong with praising God for that, but what we're doing is we're actually saying, Lord, I've been such a good boy that you rewarded me at that bicycle I always wanted. You've taken this good care of me, and that's not the case at all. Real praying is not thanking God, that's praising him. Real praying is where you get down to the nitty-gritty with God and you ask him to help you understand what's going on in your life. And I'm just thinking, listen, if he's really abundantly blessed you, you ought to get around to find out why he has. If he put extra money in your bank account, or he's giving you things that you didn't expect, there's something going on that God's trying to get across to you or to someone else, and you need to pray for those people. So don't be a satisfied Christian. Don't be somebody that's walking around all the time saying, oh Lord, I thank you for making me so good, and I've got such a great personality and such a winsome way about me that you brought people to me and you helped me and you've done this, and my little kingdom here is so great. We can do that and be in sin against God. So be careful in the way you pray and the manner you pray. Also, in this solution of praying, the right attitude in prayer is the opposite of that. Where the publican stood and couldn't even lift his eyes to heaven, and he smote his breast and said, Lord, be merciful to me, a sinner. And that's the right attitude. There's not one of us in here that deserves to go to heaven. If you think you do, you're mistaken. I don't care how wonderful you might think you are, but for the grace and mercy of God, you cannot be saved and go to heaven. God saved you, sent his son to die for your sins. So, you need to admit that when you're praying, and you don't need to start out saying, Lord, I'm a sinner and I know it, and I've sinned these things, and I want you to forgive me, and please help me to be a better person. And no, but you come to a position that you say, Lord, I know that I'm not where I ought to be. I know I'm not doing what I ought to be doing, and I'm so satisfied with where I am and what I'm doing. Would you move me off high center? Now, I hate to bring this up, but my wife is a whole lot like the Holy Spirit in my life. Matter of fact, this last week or week before, you don't like me doing this, I don't have kids at home anymore. We got home, she said, I wish I knew how to find that sermon, I want you to hear what you said. Okay. I said, it won't do me any good, because when I'm preaching, I'm under the inspiration of the Spirit of God, and I'm not, listen closely, I can't live up to what I'm telling you. I cannot live up to all of it. That's one of the problems, people think that I do, and then when I fail them, they think that I'm this liar or something. I'm just not. I know the truth, and I'll try to live the truth, but nobody can live as good as I preach. I ought to live, and you ought to live. How many of y'all got that? You ever got that? So I'm not up here lifting myself up as the example. One of my children years ago said to me, after they heard me preach, they said, it's all about you, Dad. It's all about you. You talk about what you did and how you did it. I said, son, what I was saying up there this evening was, I want them to know that it's possible to achieve and to live for God in such a way that God is blessed with you. It's not about me, but if I can't let them see an example in my own life, how can I then preach to them the truth? But at the same time, as I said on other occasions, when I got one finger pointing at you, if you notice, I got three pointing back at me. And so my wife says to me, you really ought to hear what you said. Well, I did. I heard it. And I know it was right. And in particular, talking about the Lord's return being the first thing on our mind when we get up in the morning, last thing on our mind when we go to bed, that's His. And it ought to motivate us. But I want to tell you something, friends. I cannot spend 24 hours a day waiting for Jesus to come. and hoping that he comes, and living like he's gonna come, and he won't, because I have a life that is like your life, full of other things. But that's the attitude of our heart. Well, it ought to be like this. You're out there working in the yard, and you're so enjoying what you're doing. Your wife says, it's time for lunch. You say, oh, crud. I'm not ready. Okay, honey, I'll be right there. And you lay down your tools, and you go eat, because you know it's going to be good when you get in there. But to be honest with you, you'd like to skip dinner because you're enjoying what you're doing so much. Anybody done that? You want to talk about? Well, that's the way it ought to be at the Lord's return. When he calls for us, we ought to be enjoying life so much that we hate to lay down our tools and quit, but we're ready. Amen? And we know when we get there, he's going to feed us good. And so praying ought to be in a position that we understand that we're not satisfied and that we have to have the right attitude. And Jesus said, I'll tell you, this man went to his house justified. That is the one that understood who he was, where he was, what he was doing, and wouldn't even lift up his eyes to heaven. He knew he was a scabby rat and he had sinned against God, and yet in his heart and his life, he loved the Lord so much he was willing to be honest before God. That kind of praying is personal prayer that ought to be made. So afflictions come because we are human. We're in the thrust of life, and we are on the way to where God's taken us to be. And so I say to you, that's the first thing. Secondly, he asks a question in verse 13, is any married? Let him sing songs. Now, Carolyn can tell you, and I'll give myself as an example, I sing a lot. Would you agree to that? I walk through the house singing, and she'll pick up and she'll sing a little bit with me, and I get louder than her because I sing loud, and I like to sing. And it's usually a spiritual song, you know, and I like to do that. I'm not a good singer, and don't come to me later, I am. I'm a good singer when I don't have another musical instrument with me, because I can miss those notes up pretty good. But I like to sing. And if you're married, you ought to sing. Yeah, and it's a sign that you're pleased with life. And I'm not trying to make anybody miserable because I'm singing. I just want people to know I like to sing. It is in my heart. And I believe if you're right with God, and if you're really happy with life, you got a song in your heart. I can tell you from the 40 plus years of preaching, I can look out there on the congregation and I can tell you who's not happy, who's not married, because they ain't singing. Now there's some that can't sing, and I got that, and I'm glad they don't, but they're at least mouthing the words. Chuck, are you awake back there, son? I watched you this morning. He was not asleep. I'm not getting on this. I watched him this morning singing. I don't know if Chuck can carry a tune in the basket. I don't know. Can he sing good?
Yes,
I watched him singing. He was singing every word, and I was watching his lips and seeing, make sure that he was singing. He was singing the same song I was, and he was enjoying it. Okay, we couldn't hear a word he was saying, but he was singing. On the other hand, I've asked Will to lead the singing for us some time back. I've never heard him sing. I didn't know. But I've watched him and observed him that he sings when we sing. And I don't care how good of a singer you are. If you got a merry heart, you ought to be a singer.
Yes.
Amen? So this is part of what he's telling us. It changes your whole outlook on life. And so if you're afflicted, you pray. If you're merry, that is, you've got a good spirit about you, you ought to sing. And that will change the course of nature for you. I'm looking, I've got 7 minutes, and I won't take any more than that. But the sickness. Look at with me again at our text here, where he says in verse 14, read now, is any sick among you? Before I go to that, I'm going to quit with this. I want to ask you if you ever get sick. This is not only physical as well as mental sickness. Does anybody ever get sick? You get just sick. I'm not talking just, we get a head cold or whatever. But sometimes our mental state is not right. And we just get down the dumps and so forth. This sickness that we get is generally caused by sin. Now, if you doubt that, you read what Paul wrote to the church at Corinth. Those people that were not taking the Lord's Supper right, 1 Corinthians chapter 11, he says, and for this cause, you know what the cause was? For this cause, many of you are weak and sickly, and some are asleep. What cause? They took the Lord's Supper unworthily. Now, I've honed in on this over the years, and I've never had anybody come say, preacher, you know what? I took the Lord's Supper, and I got sick over this thing, and I should not. and take the Lord's Supper. They never tell me that. Has anybody ever told you that? Has anybody ever told that to anybody? It's one of those things we hide. We don't want people to know that we've sinned. We don't want people to know that we've taken unworthy. And I want to tell you something, one of the things the church does when they take Lord's Supper, they ought to be right with God, because sickness comes from that. Now, I have a solution for that, and we'll talk about it, God willing, Wednesday night. But the sickness comes, and it means that we're feeble, and that's what the word sick means. It means to be diseased, impotent, or sick, or made weak. And that comes because we're not living as we should. Let me close with this thought, and we'll pick up there Wednesday night. Praying will stop most sicknesses from occurring. Now, bury your heart, do it good like a medicine. Pray at all times. It'll keep you right with God, keep you close to God, and it'll keep you from sinning so that you don't get sick. Now, I'm not telling you that God made you to be healthy, wealthy, and wise. I'm just telling you most of our sicknesses, just like most of our afflictions, are self-imposed. I want you to think about that. Wednesday night we'll come back together and deal with it then. All right. Well, that's what I got for you today. Anybody got any thoughts?
Well, I've got the first two songs from
Okay.
this morning.
And what were they? What did you sing?
Well, Nancy was whistling Glorious Day, so it's one day.
Okay.
That's the first one.
Yeah.
And I Am Thine, O Lord is the second one, because it was nearer, nearer, nearer. I had to flip
I have
through
Did
the
you,
Same
did you find the
thing.
second verse? I think it
The
was.
second verse that you're speaking of is consecrate me now to thy service, Lord, by thy power of grace divine. Hold on, let me see. No, it's the third verse, sorry.
What page are you on?
290.
290.
It was amazing as I listened to it.
There it is, right there. The third
Yeah, it's in verse
the third
3.
verse.
Yeah.
Oh, the pure delight of a single
Single
hour
hour.
that before thy throne I spend.
Yeah.
When I kneel in prayer with thee, my God, I commune as friend with friend. And when I sang that this morning with us, I thought, when's the last time? And so I'm going to close this out by challenging you. Find an hour this week. That's a long time if you've never done it. It's a long time. And just get along with God. Don't turn on the radio. Don't listen to music. Just go off. Don't carry your Bible with you. And just commune with the Lord. Pray a while and listen a while. And just spend an hour with the Lord. And if you, yes.
It's nothing for the ladies that meet up here to pray for an hour. Not one person, but
Together.
2, 3, 4 praying. It's usually over an hour as we share our hearts, agreeing in prayer as someone else is praying, and then continue on with that. And the hour's up and we think, oh my goodness, where's the time gone?
Yeah.
As we just
It just
commune
goes.
with the Lord and poured our hearts out and
I know your heart. You're just
I
trying
just-
to get people to come to ladies' prayer meeting.
I am.
On Monday morning, Tuesday mornings,
It's Monday morning.
Monday mornings at 10 o'clock. Go ahead, did you say something else?
No,
That's it.
just
It's true, it goes in a hurry.
an hour comes quickly.
I have, on several occasions, I've gone out with my cup of coffee and sat down and prayed and wait and drank my coffee until it's about cold and, sipping on it and spent time with the Lord. But I can't tell you the last time I spent an hour and waiting on the Lord to speak back to me. It's usually, and then down the road. So think about it, see if you can find a day this week or a time where you can spend an hour. Early morning, late evening, middle of the day, go away and spend time with the Lord. Yes?
Regarding your sermon this morning, when you were talking about the lamp, lighting your feet, goodness gracious, I lost the verse, it's on my Bible. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet.
Someone
Thank you. You just see a little bit,
That's it.
at a time. You don't see the whole thing,
No,
but
if
God
we saw the
does.
whole thing, we'd probably run.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But the word lights where you are, right when you need it.
amen. And that's so true. Y'all hear that? It's like thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. It's just a little bit at a time. If when I fell in love with Carolyn, if she said, well, if you want to marry, we're going to have 9 kids. I would really think about that. Well, let's stand together, we'll pray, and we'll head out of here. Thank you for your time with us tonight.